The other day, I actually tweeted out that the Nintendo Switch is doing something incredibly impressive when it comes to the third best selling system of all time, is that it's doing it without a price drop. Usually what you see with the Nintendo DS, with the PS2, with the PlayStation 4, with the Wii, all of these systems that have been in the 100+ million selling club, which is a very exclusive club. There's not a lot of systems that have sold over 100 million units when it comes to portable or home console or hybrid, in this case with the Nintendo Switch, is that they usually all need a lot of price drops, and somewhat frequently when it comes down to it, the Nintendo Switch has never truly gotten that. What it's gotten is a new model, which is much cheaper to manufacture, so therefore it's another price, which is cheaper than the base model of the $299 regular standard Nintendo Switch or Switch version 2, and then they got a more expensive model with the Nintendo Switch OLED, which is $50 here in the US at least, over what the standard version 2 Switch is. So there really hasn't been a real price drop for the Nintendo Switch, and I think that it's very impressive that it's been able to climb its way to the top in its 6th/7th year to the number 3rd spot, and within somewhat striking distance of the two best-selling systems of all time, with the Nintendo DS at 150 million plus and the PS2, which is right at about 159 million, 160. The Nintendo Switch is over 130 million units at this point, so it's within 20 million plus or so range of these two other systems. And I think personally, just for me, the impossible thing that we're seeing here with this system is coming up very soon. We're going to talk about it because we have some new information on what's been going down with the ongoing sales of Nintendo Switch. Can this system catch the Nintendo DS? Can it catch the PS2? Will it become the best-selling system of all time? And how is it going to do that? This is something that a lot of you guys have asked me about, so I wanted to make a dedicated video talking about it because I don't think we've discussed it too much. But before we get into it more, guys, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get the latest information on Nintendo Switch, RPGs, live streams, and more right here on PlayerEssence. Now let's go ahead and jump right into it because we have some brand new data coming out from the 2023 NPD sales. This is US software/hardware sales for July. It's usually delayed about 1 month, and we've got some new information here because the Nintendo Switch is still going incredibly strong. Now with these NPD sales, we can't see the exact number of units being sold. We just know position and ranking, and this goes for software and hardware. We know that the PlayStation 5 was the #1 selling system here in the US based off the NPD, and we know that the Nintendo Switch was number 2, but we don't know the difference in units between that 1 and 2, or even 3 with the Xbox Series. We just don't know. We just know, hey, it was this, then this. Now in dollar unit sales in terms of revenue that it brought in, because the PlayStation 5 is $500 or $400, that's obviously more than the $200 to $350 the Nintendo Switch is, so PS5 leads in that, Switch is second because of the volume, and Microsoft is third with that. Now, if you go over the software charts, what you see here is that you see quite a number of Nintendo Switch softwares in the top 20. So for the most part, software sells the hardware. If you don't have software, your hardware isn't really going to sell. So the Nintendo Switch is continuing on having games that are in the top 20. Stuff like Pikmin 4, that was a new release, and Pikmin 4 is interesting because remember with the NPD, all of this does include digital with Microsoft and Sony, but it does not include digital with Nintendo. Nintendo does not provide eShop sales numbers to the NPD. So Pikmin 4 starting out at number 6, I think that's actually a bit higher if you included all of those vouchers and everything, but either way, still a good start. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom still up there. Mario Kart 8 still up there as well. So you have some pretty good Nintendo Switch exclusives that are in the top numbers here. So overall, pretty good for sustaining sales and a system that's past its 6th year going to its 7th year. Now the biggest thing about this as well, like I talked about, is the actual Switch sales. The fact that the Switch can still hang with systems that are newer, 2+ years going on 3 years now, and it can still sell up with those systems and isn't getting blown out, shows that this system has probably a lot more years left than people are going to give it credit for. Remember, once again, no price drops at this point. Once they do get some price drops going, which will probably be after the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out or the next gen Nintendo system that comes out, I think that we're also going to continue to see continued sales. Obviously for kids or secondary system or just having another one or trying to catch up on special editions, whatever the case is, we saw that the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo DS had really long lives, even a little bit after the successors came out. The DS's was far more drastic in terms of its decline just because the Nintendo 3DS has a DS built into it, but the PS2 was a system that still continued on just because people were still playing the PS2, and the PS3 was very expensive at launch. It was hard to get in some places. It had a lack of games. So PS2 just continued on well into the PS3 era. So that's one thing that you have to note here. The Nintendo Switch, we don't know how long Nintendo's going to support it past its era, right? But I do think that since it's been so successful, the fact that it's done so much already, of course, they're going to support this thing longer than what they've supported previous systems. Usually what Nintendo does when a new system comes out, they just drop it like a bad habit. But I don't think that's going to happen here. I think they're going to still have updates. They're going to still maybe support it with some games here or there. And I think that they will eventually get to that top spot, beating out the PlayStation 2 at around 159 million. It's always kind of sketchy to see exactly where the numbers are, but if you're looking at it, 130 million right now at this point, right? They still have a number of big games coming out. And that's what I want to transition to, because at the end of the day, we're gamers and we want those big games, but those games are also what facilitate the ecosystem, facilitate people to play in multiplayer, facilitate people talking about your favorite games or discussing things or making content. Stuff like Super Mario Bros. Wonder coming out this holiday is going to be massive. You combine that with the Mario Kart 8, the same crusty Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle that people just love to keep buying. By the way, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the best-selling game in the UK for the past week, which is just crazy that that game continues to sell so well. But it once again was that. In Japan, it's still one of the top sellers. Tears of the Kingdom, still one of the best sellers overall worldwide, still the best seller on Amazon. 2, still one of the best sellers here in the MPD. So you're seeing a flow of consistent games in terms of the evergreen titles, but then also the new games coming up that are going to be a big boost. Stuff like Super Mario RPG is starting to get some more hype attached to it. You have games that are coming out next year as well. You got some great third-party stuff like Deca Police, for example, and some good indie games, Sea of Stars, stuff like that, that's also coming in to facilitate and help out. Nintendo doesn't seem to be done, and as long as they have some good games coming out with some okay third-party support, they don't need every single thing, because a lot of things don't come over, but as long as they have some first-party games sprinkled in with the evergreen games still doing incredibly well, the Nintendo Switch can definitely keep this momentum pulling and pulling and pulling, and then once the price drops, hits, and everything like that, it can definitely boil over to 160 million units plus when it's all said and done. And I think that Nintendo is not actually like looking to say, okay, we have to outsell the Nintendo DS or the PlayStation 2, but I think that that is a thing that you put on the resume, right? That is something that if you can and you're working there, that was something that you were a part of. You were a part of history of a system becoming the best selling of all time. The PS2 has held that crown for a decade plus now, right? It's been so long since there's been any system that's even had a chance at catching the PlayStation 2. The DS was the last system that even had somewhat of a chance, and even then, not really, right? Even then, it kind of just fell off, and really, it was way cheaper. If it was going to do it, it would have done it a while ago, and it didn't. So the Nintendo Switch truly has that advantage of being a very unique system, but at the same time, being a system that truly has the price in terms of what it can do, in addition to the games, having all those different games and games still coming out. I really think that it does have the opportunity, but the impossible feat here is actually doing what it did without a price drop 6 plus 7 years at this point. That's just wild, because if you go back and look, Nintendo DS, PlayStation 2, those needed multiple different price drops. Those needed a lot of different moving parts to really fall into place in order for it to do as well as it did. And heck, the PlayStation 2, for example, just really didn't have a lot of competition. I mean, there was some with the Xbox and the GameCube, but those sold so poorly in competition. None of those even hit 30 million units. They were all both under 30 million, which is just not very good when it comes to a console, right? N64 did better than that. So the fact that the Nintendo Switch is able to do this in the height of the competition with the PlayStation 5, with the Xbox Series, with the PlayStation 4, with the Xbox One, which we talk about Xbox One sales not being that great. That's true, but it still did better than the competition that was around with the 6th generation against the PlayStation 2. So the Nintendo Switch has battled against all of this here and still been able to come out on top for the most part, right? I don't think anybody would have guessed that the Nintendo Switch would beat out the PlayStation 4 when it was first launching? People were saying, no way, there's no chance that it can catch this system, because the PS4 was just rolling and it has all the third party and it was just doing everything right overall. So very interesting nonetheless. These MP numbers are interesting to see. The Nintendo Switch is continuing to stay pace, continue to hang in with the current generation of systems that are super powerful and have all these different third-party games coming. And I'm definitely interested to see how this goes, especially with how Super Mario Wonder is and the holiday. I think that's going to be a big telltale on where Nintendo Switch ends up at the next fiscal year, which they're looking to do about 140 million or so, which I think they're probably going to get there, especially with Super Mario RPG, Mario Bros. Wonder, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart still doing things. They should get to 140 million, and then, man, anything can happen once you're there, because you have another holiday with that. I mean, you're getting really close to that 150 million unit range, and once again, anything can happen once you're in that range and once price drops hit. So it's going to be really fun to see how all of that works out. But what are your thoughts on this when it comes to Nintendo Switch and doing this crazy thing that it's been doing when it comes to the sales streaks and when it comes to hanging in with the PS5 and the Xbox Series, despite being far older than them? And what do you think that they're going to do for the holiday? How do you feel that the games are going to help out with the hardware? When do you think that the Nintendo Switch is actually going to pass up the PS2? Now, I do want to give a little bit of a prediction on that part, and I'm looking at my calendar here and I'm thinking, okay, how many years will it take if Nintendo gets to 140 million units or so by March of next year at their meeting? I'm guessing it's going to take at least another year and a half to 2 years. So I'd probably just say 2 years to go on the conservative side. So I'd probably say 3 years from now, we'll be saying that the Nintendo Switch is the best selling system of all time. Guaranteed, 3 years from now at this point, it will absolutely be the best selling system of all time. But what do you guys think? Do you think that the Nintendo Switch will pass up the Nintendo DS and PS2 as the best selling system of all time? Do you feel that it'll fall short? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other videos right here on screen. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.